Chapter 9. On to the pony penning grounds. It was now mid-morning, and the hot July sun was high in the heavens. The wild ponies stood with heads hanging low, tails tucked in. They looked beaten and confused. Only the Phantom's foal seemed contented. She slept, her sides rising and falling in the cool shade made by the mare's body. "Rest 'em a bit longer," Wild Maddox directed. "Then on to the pony pens." Marine sat watching, thinking. The little colt must never know the hungry feeling of being without a mother. But the $100, would it pay for both? She was jolted out of her thoughts with the cry, "Get a-going!" Onlookers fell back while Marine, Grandpa Beebe, and the other horsemen surrounded the ponies and began driving them toward town. The Phantom broke at the start, her colt weaving along behind her like the tail of a kite. "Please God, don't let Phantom escape now," breathed Marine as she and Grandpa Beebe took out after them. But Phantom could not travel fast with her stilty-legged youngster. Marine soon came upon them, hidden among the foliage of a kinks bush, the Phantom's proud wild face and the colt's comical baby face all framed round with green leaves. With a shout she drove them back into the herd. After that the mare no longer tried to escape, for there were no openings into the cool woods, only lines of cars and visitors forming a solid fence on either side of them. Slowly and dejectedly the wild ponies paraded through the main streets of Chincoteague. Only the Phantom's colt seemed happy with her lot. She could smell her mother close by. Her stomach was stretched tight with milk. She was full of sleep. She kicked her heels sideways, dancing along, letting out little whinnies of joy. She seemed to like Chincoteague. All up and down the streets, people came spilling out of their houses, shouting to one another as they recognized some mare or stallion from previous rounds up. "There's that pinto with the shark eyes. Look at the Pied Piper. His forelock's grown most as long as his tail. See all the big colts? Who's the chestnut mare with the white mark on her shoulders?" "Not the Phantom. It can't be her," they gasped in disbelief. "It is the Phantom," someone yelled in answer, "and she's got a colt. I saw 'em swim her in." "And Paul Beebe got her," someone else called. "I heard Kim Horsepepper tell all about it." The excitement ran from house to house like a flame in the wind. "They got the Phantom, Paul Beebe got her, and she's leading a colt." Through the shouting, elbowing crowd, the slow parade went on, past stores and restaurants, past the white frame hotel, past the red brick firehouse which the colts of other years had paid for. Marine looked straight ahead. She stayed so close to the Phantom and her foal that when the foal looked sideways, Marine could see her long golden eyelashes. At last the procession turned into the pony penning grounds. It moved quickly once around the ring, then once again, while children and parents and horse dealers hung over the fence. The children shouted at the top of their lungs, "Oh, Dad, buy me the colt with the star on his face. I want the one with the white stockings. I want the littlest one." Only the dealers were silent. They were thinking in terms of buying and selling. Grandpa Beebe rode close to Marine. "We got 'em here," he sighed sharply. "Now it's up to the men afoot." Again that feeling of something pressing against her throat came to Marine as she watched the men on foot drive the ponies out of the ring, separating the colts from their mothers. They herded the colts into small pens, giving the mares and stallions the run of a big corral. Suddenly it was the Phantom's turn to be herded into the corral. She flew ahead of the men, never allowing them to touch her. Now 2 brawny men were making a grab for her. Now they were grabbing for the foal. For long seconds the men held the foal high, their hands supporting her little round belly. Then they put her down, slapped her hip, and sent her along with her mother into the big corral. Marine drew a deep breath of happiness. The colt's too little to leave her mother. Too little, she whispered into Grandpa's ear. They'll let 'em stay together. Then she hurried home to tell Paul. Paul's asleep, Grandma said, and you leave him be. I got some butter beans warmin' for ye and some nice fresh cornbread sittin' atop the oven. While Maureen ate, Grandma talked on. I can see you're boilin' over with things to tell, but they'll keep till you've ate. Between whiles, I'll do the talkin'. She closed one eye and thought. Let's see. Oh, Victoria Pruitt stopped by. Figured you or Paul would like to earn some extra money by helping her and Mr. Pruitt catch chickens. They're fixin' to ship 'em to Norfolk. But I told Miss Victoria your money pouch was fat as a tick. Maureen's spoon fell to the floor. Oh, Grandma, the Phantom's got a colt, and we've got to earn money to buy her, too. Grandma looked at Maureen's plate. She saw that the beans were gone, and there was nothing left of the cornbread but a few crumbs. Go along, she nodded. Miss Victoria wanted ye right much. Maureen spent the afternoon chasing hundreds of chickens and cooping them up in little crates. By sundown her arms were pecked and scratched, and her face streaked with perspiration. As she walked home, clutching $2 in her moist hand, she saw Paul riding toward her on watch eyes. Leg up behind me, he called out. I got to go to the store for Grandma. You can help carry things. Maureen scrambled up behind her brother. Paul? Do you reckon the firemen'll sell us both the Phantom and the little one? Course. The colt's too young to take away from the mare. But where will we get the money? Paul slowed Watch Eyes to a walk. I've been working on it while I slept, he said. What time does the sale begin? It says 9:30 on the program. All right, exclaimed Paul, giving Watch Eyes his head. You and I'll get to the pony penning grounds at sunup. We'll wait at the entrance for the fire chief. Soon as he comes, we'll say to him, We got exactly $100, sir. We earned it in less than 4 months. In 4 months more, we can earn another 100. You see, Chief, we're fixin' to buy the Phantom in Misty, too. Why, Paul, that's exactly what we'll do. It'll be just as easy as that. She threw her arms about Paul's waist. Misty, she chuckled. Who named the Phantom's colt? She kinda named herself, Paul answered. While I was in the woods there on Chincoteague, I couldn't tell if I was seeing white mist with the sun on it or a live colt. The minute I knew 'twas a live colt, I kept calling her Misty in my mind. Misty, said Maureen softly. Misty, she repeated as they jogged along. She came up out of the sea. Grandpa was in the kitchen, standing before a mirror, trimming the bristles in his ears, when Paul and Maureen came in with the groceries. Concern it all, he fussed. You gotta rustle them bags like cows tromping through a cornfield. A fella can't hear hisself think, let alone hold his hand steady. This here's a mighty ticklish job. Why, Clarence, exclaimed Grandma, I've never seen you so twittery. If you had whisk brooms in your ears, maybe you'd be twittery too. Grandma stopped basting the marsh hen she had just taken out of the oven and burst out in helpless laughter. Whisk broom in my ears, she laughed, and soon Maureen and Paul and even Grandpa were laughing with her. All right now, said Grandma, recovering her breath. Maureen, you can set the potatoes to boil and lay the table. Lay an extra place like always. You never know when some human straggler is gonna stop. And bein' as it's pony pennin' day, you can cut a few of them purty by nights, and some bouncin' best for a centerpiece. No straggler came. Just the 4 of them sat round the table while a light wind played with the curtains. Grandpa became more like himself with each mouthful of the tender marsh hen. The reason I was jumpy, he confessed, was on account of thinking about that Phantom you children want to buy. No one of sound mind ever buys a 3-year-old wild pony. Why, Phantom's like the topsail on a ship. A moonraker she is." The flapping of the curtain broke the little pause that followed. "Besides," Grandpa continued, "my feet is killin' me. Reckon we're in for a blow. A southwester came up this afternoon, and I never seen a nor'easter take no back talk from a southwester." "If a thunder squall's a brewin'," spoke Grandma, "the children gotta stay home from the race tonight." Paul and Marine's eyes sought Grandpa's, as much as to say, "How could you do this to us? Why, the race on the eve of the sale is almost as important as the roundup." "Oh," coughed Grandpa, "it'll be after the race afore the weather turns squally, and my advice is for the children to go right smart quick so they can mill around in the colt pens afore the race. They might find a critter with lots purtier markings than the Phantom." Paul and Marine leaped to their feet. They galloped round and round the table, stopping to nose Grandpa and Grandma like curious colts. Then they soberly promised to visit the colt pens, but in their hearts they knew there was room only for the Phantom and Misty. Chapter 10. Colts Have Got to Grow Up. As Paul and Marine stood inside the big corral, looking at Misty, they knew she was the finest-blooded foal in the world. Oh, the beauty of her! She was neither silver nor gold. She was both. She had a funny white blaze that started down the left side of her face, then did a right about and covered her whole muzzle. It gave her a look of wonderment and surprise. Like her mother, she too wore a white map of the United States on her withers, but the outlines were softer and blended into the gold of her body. They could have gazed at her forever, exclaiming over her gold eyelashes, her pink underlip, her funny knobby knees, her short flappy tail, the furry insides of her ears. But suddenly Paul was aware of an uneasy feeling, as though someone were eyeing him. Then he felt a hot breath on the back of his neck. Slowly he turned his head and came face to face with the Pied Piper. For an instant, neither the stallion nor the boy winked an eyelash. Pied Piper stared fixedly at Paul from under his long forelock. He was like a man peering out from ambush. Paul could see the white ring round the stallion's eyes, the red lining of his nostrils, the ears flattened. He could smell the wildness. He sensed that one false move and a darting foreleg would knock him down as if he were a cornstalk. He opened his mouth to speak, but for a long time no sound came. "Your baby," he spoke at last in the softest of voices. "Your baby is beautiful." The Pied Piper's ears twitched ever so slightly. "You mean our filly," corrected Marine in her strong, high voice. The Pied Piper laced his ears back again. He bared his teeth, breathing loudly. "I'm not talking to you, Marine," Paul whispered, his face pale. "Turn your head." The Pied Piper's ears pricked once more. That soft, curious voice. "Oh," Marine breathed as she caught sight of the stallion. "Your baby is beautiful," she gasped, "and so is your mare." "So are all your mares," added Paul for good measure. "Excuse us, sir, but we must see the race now." He and Marine began backing slowly toward the fence. Just then a stallion from another band came over to study the Pied Piper's family. The Pied Piper forgot Paul and Marine in the more important business of bunching his mares behind him. "Phew," said Paul breathlessly as they scrambled over the fence. "That was a close one." On the way to the racetrack, they had to pass between the colt pens. "We almost forgot our promise to look at the colts," they both exclaimed in the same breath. Hurriedly, they squeezed in between the spectators and perched on the top rail of the pens. Their face paled as they looked down. Round and round the pen the colts were plodding, searching for their mothers, flinging their heads up, whimpering, trying to suckle anything their muzzles could reach. "Why, they're as close packed as oysters in a barrel," exclaimed Paul. "They're children, lost and scared," said Maureen. "Let's go," she cried through white lips. "Let's go. I can't abide the nickering. The young things are hungry." Paul felt as if he were going to be sick. "I can't abide it either," he said. Then his mouth thinned to a line, and he doubled his fist. "I'm going to see the chief about this." The fire chief was a big, broad-shouldered man who walked with a cane. There were times when the cane seemed to dangle uselessly in his hands, but when he was tired, he leaned on it heavily. They found him now in the center of a group of visitors, both hands gripping the cane. His face was sun-blistered and weary, but his eyes lighted when he saw Paul and Maureen. "Here's Paul Beebe, the lad who swam the Colt ashore," he explained to the little group, "and his sister, Maureen, who—" The crowd shifted, began surrounding Paul, pelting questions at him. "Did the Colt try to drag you down like a drowning person? How old is it? How wide is the channel where you swam across?" Paul and Maureen scarcely heard the questions. "What are you two looking so hollow-eyed about?" the chief asked as he drew the children aside. "It's about the Colts," Maureen stammered. Yes, said Paul. "We don't believe they should be taken from their mothers, and we aim to do something about it, if you'll let us, sir. We got lots of milk in the ice chest at home, and once we raised up a foal on a big nursing bottle, and we still got the bottle. It's cruel to starve the young things." The fire chief stood silent and thoughtful. He looked past the grounds and out to the bay, where the masts of the fishing boats formed spider-thin lines against the graying sky. "I don't know if I can make you understand about this, but I'll try," he began slowly. "Colts have got to grow up sometime. Their mothers can't go on babying them all their lives. Haven't you two seen a mare tell her youngster to go rustle his own living?" Paul and Maureen nodded in silence. "She can't tell the colt in so many words," the fire chief continued. "She just kicks him away, gentle-like at first, then good and hard if he won't understand. Sometimes she has to get pretty rough, especially when she's going to have a new foal in a few months." "But those little colts—" "Those little fellows," nodded the chief, "are old enough to fend for themselves. Separating them from their mothers is the kindest way we know to teach them how." Paul and Maureen reddened. They felt very young and foolish as they thanked the fire chief for explaining things. "Don't thank me, you two. When I was rising up betwixt a youngster and a grown-up, the same question worried me every pony penning day. Finally, I watched a mare tell her colt to grow up. Then I quit worrying. Now I want you to quit worrying, too. Besides," he added, as he pulled out his watch, "it's almost time for the race. Black Comet will be running any minute now. It's high time," he said, tapping his cane in the sawdust. "It's high time we islanders raised up a competitor for Black Comet. Things have been much too easy for him." "Tell him now," nudged Maureen, her eyes shining. "Chief," said Paul, trying to make his voice behave, "next year Black Comet will have a real competitor. Maureen and I want to buy the But the fire chief never heard what Paul had to say. His words were drowned by a voice blaring over the loudspeaker. "Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Black Comet from Pocomoke is racing against Patches and Lucy Lee of Chincoteague." Chapter 11. Storm Shy. Feeling much happier, Paul and Maureen joined the throngs hurrying to see Black Comet. Black Comet was 5 years old. For 3 of those years he had been brought over from Pocomoke on the mainland to race for pony penning crowds on the eve of the sale, and for 3 years he had won. Twice he led by several lengths, and once he led only by a nose, but always he won. This night was no different. Black Comet pranced to the starting lines, sure of himself. His jockey, too, was sure. They both seemed bored with the excited antics of the 2 other entries. One was a flashy black and white pony named Patches. He danced on his hind feet, bolted past the starting line, and had to be brought back time and time again. The other entry was Lucy Lee, a nervous little mare. Black Comet threw back his head and let out a high horse laugh at them, as if to say, "You're wasting your time." And they were. The race belonged to Black Comet from the start. He broke out in front and stayed there. Maureen beat her fist on the fence rail. "Come on, Patches. Come on, Lucy Lee. Don't let Black Comet win every time." "Next year, the Phantom will be in there," Paul kept saying. "Next year, the Phantom." Just as Black Comet crossed the finish line, a bolt of lightning split the sky. At the same instant, Paul felt a strong hand grip his shoulder. It was Grandpa Beebe. His face was spattered with dirt and his clean blue shirt in ribbons. "The squall ain't a promise no more. It's here. Paul, you stay and help the fire chief. Maureen, you come home with me." "And Paul, if the storm gets too heavy," he called back over his shoulder, "you take shelter in our truck. It's backed up nigh to the colt pens." The grounds burst into noise and confusion. The wind whined. It caught at the tent flaps, snapped them like whips. The white paper program spiraled through the air, driven first this way and then that. Children, overtired and frightened, cried to be taken home. Thunder rumbled deep out of the heavens. Colts in their pens squealed. Stallions trumpeted. Paul fought his way to the pony pens, dodging people, dodging pieces of paper which the wind swept into his face. He could scarcely see his way. The strings of colored electric bulbs waved back and forth, throwing strange shadows. At last he came upon the fire chief, brandishing his cane and shouting directions. "Dan, you do this. Joe, you do that. Paul." Paul strained his ears to hear, but suddenly the sky seemed to open and rain fell in great torrents. The swaying lights went out, plunging the island into darkness. "Everyone go home," called the chief. "Nothing we can do now." A flash of lightning showed him limping towards his car. Paul did not follow. The rain beat down on him fiercely. It felt cold and hard, like gunshot. How could Misty stand it? "She's so little," he thought. "She's bound to be storm-shy. I know what I'll do. I'll carry her to the truck and shelter her until the storm is past." Warmed by this decision, he ran past the colt pens and on to the big corral. Lightning sizzled across the sky, flooding the earth with an eerie white. It showed the wild ponies, separated into 4 bands. Paul's eyes leaped from one band to another, trying to find the Pied Piper's family. But darkness closed in. He held his breath, waited for another flash. It came. He picked out the stallion's creamy white mane. Quickly Paul scrambled over the fence. He waited again, his eyes fastened on the spot where the Pied Piper's band stood huddled. He held onto the fence with one hand and made a watershed over his eyes with the other. He waited again for the lightning. It came tearing across the sky. He could see the Pied Piper's family as plainly as if it were daylight, but the Phantom and Misty were not among them. They were gone, stolen. Some other stallion had stolen them. The thought flashed through his mind. Shivering and drenched, he ran from one band to the other. He stumbled over tree stumps and fell flat in the water. His mouth was gritty with sand and mud. He went on blindly, feeling every hump in the grass, every fallen log. But nowhere in all that big corral could he find the tiny foal or her wild dam. Running, slipping, falling, running, he made his way to the pony trucks. Most of the trucks were empty, waiting for tomorrow's sale. A few held a colt or two, the big colts, big and shaggy. Sick with fear for Phantom and Misty, he sought the shelter of Grandpa Beebe's truck to think out where they might be. Could Phantom have leaped the fence? Could Misty have rolled under it? He stopped short. There, in the body of the truck, under a piece of tarpaulin, he felt rather than saw a slight stirring. But from fear that what he prayed was a mare and her colt would turn out to be bags of feed, he cried out for a flash of lightning. It came in a streak, filling the truck with yellow light. And in that split second, Paul saw the Phantom and Misty, their heads lowered in a corner like children being punished at school. He threw back his head for joy and let the rain beat on his face. So that was why Grandpa's shirt was torn and his face seamed with dirt. He had brought them to the shelter before the storm broke. Paul opened the door of the cab, half expecting Grandpa to be there. It was empty, except for Grandpa's old rain jacket that lay on the seat and the strong smell of tobacco. He ripped off his wet shirt, his denim pants. His teeth chattered as he pulled on the warm, dry jacket. It was so long it almost covered him completely. He ran round to the tailgate of the truck and steadied himself onto the spare tire. Slowly, cautiously, hardly daring to breathe, he climbed up and over the tailgate and into the truck. The storm blotted out any sound he might have made, but the Phantom sensed his presence. She neighed sharply to Misty, who caught her fear. Paul could hear the small rat-a-tat of her hoofs. He leaned hard against the stakes of the truck, every muscle tensed. Phantom would either charge him or stay as far away as possible. He waited, counting the seconds. He could hear the rain sloshing over the tarp, spilling down the sides of the truck. He could smell the steamy warmth of furry bodies. He could smell the sea. And in the occasional flashes of light, he saw the copper and white tail of the Phantom sweeping nervously over Misty. Paul let out a deep sigh of relief. She was not going to charge him. He never knew how long he stood there. He only knew that after a while the Phantom no longer mistrusted him. She seemed to doze off for seconds at a time, as if she felt a oneness with him, as if she and her foal and this shivering wet boy were fellow creatures caught in a storm, prisoners of the elements, prisoners together. Together. The word sounded a bugle in Paul. Time stood still. There was only the wind and the rain and the three creatures together. Aching to reach out and touch first the shaggy coat, then the silky one, he plunged his hands deep into Grandpa's pockets to stop the impulse. His fingers felt a firm, slightly sticky object. He squeezed it. He traced a few dried stems, then paper-thin leaves pressed solidly together. It was a twist of chewing tobacco. Quickly he pulled it out of his pocket. The spicy sweetness of molasses filled his nostrils. He took long, deep breaths of it. His mind was turning somersaults. Molasses. How ponies love it. Often he had seen Grandpa cut a quid for watch eyes. With trembling fingers, he broke off a sizable piece and held it out on his outstretched hand. For a long time he waited. When he could stand no longer, he sank down on the cold, wet floor of the truck, still holding his hand toward the Phantom. He waited, motionless. He listened to the storm bell tolling out in the bay, and to the rain swishing and swirling around him. He felt little rivulets of perspiration run down his back. He grew hot and chilled by turns. His arm grew numb, then began to prickle as if hundreds of red-hot needles were jabbing him. His head reeled. It ached for lack of sleep. And just when his hand was about to drop, he heard slow, questioning hooves placed one at a time on the floor of the truck. One step forward. Then a long pause filled in by the sobbing of the wind. Then another step. And another. Now a breath on his hand. now feelers sending chills of excitement of his arm racing through his whole body, now a soft muzzle lipping his palm. The tobacco was gone, lifted out of his hand by a pony so wild that she had upset a boat, so wild that for 2 years no one had caught her, a wild thing eating out of his hand. He wriggled his fingers in wonderment. All the numbness had gone out of them. He was not even trembling. Only this sharp ecstasy, this feeling that all of life was worth this moment. The roundup, the discovery of Misty, the swim across the channel, they all melted into this. The moments rushed on. The storm quieted. Paul could hear the phantom mouthing the tobacco. He tried to keep awake to enjoy the pleasant, soothing sound, but his eyes drooped. His breath steadied. He fell into a deep sleep, unmindful when the phantom nosed him curiously from head to foot. Then she too began to doze. At last Misty sank down in exhaustion. Her head fell across Paul's lap, not because she wanted human comfort, but because she was tired from the hard drive and the swim. The floor of a truck or a boy's lap were all the same to her, so long as her mother was near. It was thus at dawn that Grandpa Beebe found them.